Okay. That should be working. There you go. Okay. Brother to stop texting me. Good morning, Wallen. How's things? What's going on? What's going on? So, I'm going to continue this. Going to finish up this validator. See if I can get this working. I didn't get much done yesterday after this because I was doing the things. I also, Milan posted an article on doing. I want to say auth interceptors or something like that. I'll find the article later and post it in the Discord. But basically, I think that's my answer for how I do customized auth in this application. So what you can do is you can actually put something, and it ends up going in the pipeline. I'm not quite sure how, because all you do is set up DI. But by virtue of it being a transform, that's it. It's a transform. It's an auth transform. By virtue of it being an auth transform, it seems to get put into the pipeline, and then you can put extra pieces in there. So my thought is, if I could use that when a request comes in, I can validate they're a valid tenant user, validate they're a user, validate they're a tenant, and pull auth from the database, and then use caching to make sure that's nice and fast every time. So I'm going to investigate building a component around that. That would be one of the things I open source as well, because that would be useful. So that's another project to do. Things are going well. Thanks for asking. Good to hear it. Other stuff to talk about. Oh, so the other day I went to go and find out where Dan was, because Dan I kind of got used to just having him on in the mornings, his stream up, and it said this account has been suspended. He posted this morning that he's going to start streaming on YouTube, but apparently his account has been indefinitely banned on Twitch due to fraud. And Twitch won't let him appeal. They instantly rejected his appeal form, and he now can't reapply for 6 months for another appeal. They make you wait 6 months for an appeal. So um, he wasn't, he wasn't streaming to hundreds of people. He wasn't, you know, he had only a few subs, and yeah, so Twitch has apparently banned him for right now. So yeah, he's started streaming on YouTube. But apparently the process of trying to claim, hey, why do you think this? What have I done? Ended with abject failure and refusal to acknowledge it. So he's struggling there. So yeah. You toys. Glad you got it, bro. Okay, so let's get this validator in here. So we've got a form group. Validators. Does that work that way? Like that. Validators. Is that sounds a parameter validator. Names string validator function. Custom validators, Angular custom validators. How do we specify them in the form? Yes. Oh, because that's going to return. And then we need to import validators, I assume. Index.ts. So if you're using Angular and you don't want to keep having to specify the entire file every single time in here, you can do that and create an index model, and that works there. What don't you like there? Expected one argument's got 0. Oh, because that requires start, date time, end date time. Look at that. It's like I know what I'm doing all of a sudden. So that's our create sprint form. Let's go see if it works. Tasks. Backlog. Oh, you're not running. You kind of need everything running, don't you? It helps to have the system running if you want to get data out and stuff. So I still haven't learned a better word for execution. This area here, tasks, as it's called right this second, right? I'm still trying to think what that should be. But essentially, this component of the system is all about doing the things that we've planned, right? So it is execution of those plans, essentially. Doors open. Okay, there we go. So we've got our tasks, and now we can go to our boards and we can do our create sprint. Now, the challenge is, how do you fire custom validators is the next challenge. And what does a custom validator message look like? Displaying custom errors. Okay, so so I assume the form has one as well. So let's go and get the buttons off here. I don't need the help. Let's put that there. And form group valid. And then if form group dot errors, if not form group dot valid and form group dot errors, small. span form dot errors dot, let's see, cancel does not exist. Okay. It's just hide, isn't it? We'll do that. Create sprint test. 10 10 20 24 09 p.m. 10:09 2024 08 p.m. So class equals, well, let's not worry about styling errors because that's an entire class into itself, right? So then we're going to do for, yeah, that'll do right this second. Key of validation errors must have a symbol iterator. So hold on, what's the validation errors then? Validator directive, validator, form field validators, async. Oh, I'm not using async validators. If we were trying to validate existence and things like that, maybe. Email exists, yeah. Afternoon, Rambling Geek. How you doing? Good. Good. Dark mode that. Name errors required. Name errors, minimum name errors. Right, but I just want to loop through the errors, I suppose. Do I have to know what the errors are? That suggests I have to know what the errors are. So that would be start end date true. Right. So I assume that the way we use that is similar to that, but we do start end date. End date must be after start date. Or start date must. Let's go with that one. Not too bad. It's good to hear. I'm very bad at remembering to take medicines and things, and my alarm to remind me is set 20 minutes into the stream, which is probably not good to be trying to take stuff on the stream, but yeah. Okay, so test sprint 10:10 2024 09 09 a.m. 10:08 2024 10:10 a.m. So I know there's an error there, but I don't have an error. Awesome. So let's do, yeah, that'll do. This is going to get very tedious. If I have to keep testing this, test 1010 2024 09 1009 24 09. Right. Okay. So that's our error. Why doesn't that work then? Afternoon, Mr. Jones. How you doing? It's not an object. That's the thing. So is that valid? Property start end date comes from an index image, so it must be accessed with start end date. Right, but it doesn't. Yeah, I hear that. I'm incredibly sorry for that. So it's not set. So errors is an object. So that's why they're suggesting that that's possible. Adding custom validators. Forbidden name validator. Return forbidden name value control value. Right. So, but that's not. Is that? I don't think that makes a difference. Oh. Like it's validating. It knows there's an error. That's not the problem. That's their example, almost. Well, kind of. The function is a factory that takes a regular expression, blah, 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 return, control, abstract control. In this sample, the forbidden name is Bob. The validator rejects any hero name containing Bob. Elsewhere, it could reject Alice or any name that configuring, right? So you pass in the reject, right? Returns the configured validator function. The function takes an angular control object and returns either null if the control value is valid or validation error object. The validation error object typically has a property whose name is the validation key, forbidden name, and whose value is an arbitrary dictionary of values that you can insert into an error message. So in that case, they use in the display, they're going to use forbidden name validator, take forbidden name. Yeah, but that's. But I'm saying true. So why isn't that? Why doesn't it display? So I can't iterate through errors. And that's their example. Oh, idiot. This is why you shouldn't trust AI. or copy paste, because that was copy paste. Oh, it's pure copy paste. I was copying and pasting from an example. I'm wondering why the example doesn't work. I tell you, this not getting sleep thing is starting to catch up on me. Oh look, it works if I use the right field. It wasn't a full Stack Overflow copy paste. It was it was copying and pasting from something like that, and then changing it there. And I copied name, and name is valid because I have a field called name. So same general problem. But when I instantly said it, I couldn't remember whether I'd actually done that. Let the Copilot fill it in for me, or whether I'd actually done that. But yeah. So this, if I move this to next week, should work fine. There we go. Okay, so we have validation in there. It doesn't look good, but it works. Pepcac, absolutely. There's a lot of that recently. So, when we save that, planning program. Clean up when using. Oh no, we added, but we shouldn't have added. That shouldn't be there because I should remove that piece. Please tell me to remove the piece. Remove the piece. So in essence, that can roll back. We don't need to do a commit there on something we shouldn't have a commit on. Okay. Create. What's that? Add task move from. Okay, that's the real point. Let's move that first. That module shared. Move that around. Moved a task dialog under dialogues group and raw group in components. We added a create sprint log. So I've still got some inconsistency between adds and creates. Again, one of the things I'm not scared of doing is when it comes time to kind of organize the UI and figure out the UI, then I'm not scared of going through and renaming things to be more appropriate or on point. Whether I land on create or add, it is important to get that in there to make sure it is consistent, because if you have a deviation in standards like that and someone else comes to add something, they don't know what to go with, so they'll go on what they think, right? Because it's clearly whatever you think it is. So, you know, if they decide it's like instantiate or whatever, they can do that because there's no general standard in the code of, oh, we're going to create something, this is a create, or we're going to add something, this is an add, depending on our terminology. And the developers, we flip flop all the time through those words. But from a UI perspective, it's important to, like, are you creating something or are you adding something? Um, I could argue you are creating a sprint, um, but then you're technically creating a requirement in the same way, and you're adding a requirement to a planning item. So is the action to add a planning item, a requirement, or is the action to create and assign, right? So, um, but I don't want to get bogged down in that thought right now because I just want to move forward and get the application working. Um, but again, I'm not scared to refactor those things later. Um, I did create sprint dialog. Don't start that now. Too early for that, bud. Created validator for date range. We are still going to put validation on the back end because it matters that we don't let that through. So we're gonna add a validator in there. Shout out to Mr. Basheros. Yeah, if you haven't been to Frank's stream, where have you been? He's really only streaming on Fridays recently, for the most part that I've seen. But he does a few things. He's been building a game website using Blazor, for doing like there's a dice game. I'm not going to do it any justice trying to describe it, but yeah, he's been building a website around that, and also he was doing some CI/CD stuff last week because he is an Azure specialist, and he does a lot in there. So it's a great stream to go and hang out in, and he's just a super nice guy, and it's really a good place to be. Create validate for date range and with that for the second. So coming soon. So Mojo is helping me a little bit with some of this stuff. Well, it'll be helping me a lot as it goes on. But so Liquid Sky is a platform for the product planning and stuff, right? So we have all the things in here. But there's a concept of customer. And this system, a lot of systems as they're developing need that thing, right? They need to have thanks for the luck, Mr. Johns. They need to manage those customers. And I don't want to put that management inside of Liquid Sky, right? So tenants and stuff like that, you know, I could hack it in that there's a management tenant and I log into that tenant and that tenant has different UI, etc. But then this application stops being this application and starts being customized when it needs to be, and it gets into a big, deep, dark hole of responsibilities. So Mojo is trying to get his head around like going off and building the back end service for this. So we've been communicating, we've been talking about that, and what he's going to build, and he's going to use Next to build that piece, not Angular, which I'm all on board with because it gives me a chance to see other technology and also grow into that as well a little bit, so I can look at the differences. It's also something he's more familiar with than Angular, and I'd rather him be more productive for that. So he's going to build what. So if you see the word the words control tower, or you hear it mentioned on stream, that is that piece. I'm not trying to hide it. I'm not like Mojo is on his time when he gets a chance to work on that. That's for him to think with for right now, because it's just, you know, when you're managing tenants, when you're understanding what your customers are doing as we go forward, you know, if we're building this as a true platform, then you need billing and all those sorts of fun things. You can't put these into this platform. It's not a good thing to do because it will make a lot of the data that is stored for a customer, for a planning item, etc. It'll make a mess of that. So it's very important for me to make sure that that component is separate. Now it'll still hook into Kafka. If a customer signs up, that system will also get told, oh, by the way, this tenant signed up, and all the configuration and stuff will get stored there. Global lookups, things that we want to control at a global level would be controlled there. Enabling features, disabling features in the long term would actually be provided by that system. So um, he'll be doing that. I don't know if he'll stream any of that. The option is there. I'm not trying to hide that. But it's a system I can't work on at the same time as working on this. And I thought it would be good thing to work on. So yeah, I will eventually show some of the stuff once we've got some stuff underway. But it will be using Next, so I'll be completely out of my comfort zone. But I'm okay with that, right? It's okay that it's a completely different system. It's okay that it's a completely different framework. It just demonstrates yet again the flexibility of having a more distributed system. From a skill perspective, if I have to maintain it, that's going to be another challenge, but I'll worry about that when it comes to it. So let's get the stores and stuff necessary here. Now, is Sprint... Hey, Dota. How you doing? Is Sprint its own store? I think it is. I think Sprint can have task identifiers attached to it with... No, we'd have to have the bare minimum of tasks. So this would be a different perspective. I think we are at that point. Tasks. I think we end up with a store here. I think it's right to have a store for... I don't think it's right to use tasks and put sprints in tasks, because tasks store is very much all about the tasks. We should be able to, yeah, because we can work with tasks independently of sprints. We can't work with sprints independently of tasks, but we'd always be, when we're talking about a sprint, we would always be getting tasks associated with a sprint. So that's okay. That's a perspective we can deal with. And this date time picker is horrendous. I got to figure out something different there. Actually, does G, do they have a specific date time picker? I don't know if there's... What's in my story pointing is now time estimation article again. I think I've completely rewritten it 3 times, still not happy with it. What are you trying to present it as? Time estimation opinion piece. Fair enough. can't get your thoughts in order. Sorry, I'm not eating on stream. I'm taking my medicines. Um, get rid of all the strong wording. So there's no specific date time picker component in there. That's annoying. Yeah, I mean, well, that's what I was going to do. Ow. Well, I'm remembering. I wanted to. Oh, I think I installed. Agile estimation and planning I installed. Yeah. Mike Cohn's Agile Estimation and Planning book is what I wanted to read. So I will remember to do that later. Just an observation, but planning items work in terms of review dates, tasks, or in terms of sprints. Yes. Yeah. Observation in which way? Well, again, so the way I keep validating Liquid Sky is I keep testing it against what I know, what I've experienced, and where my pain points were. I keep like questioning, okay, would this solve this issue? Would this solve this issue? So oftentimes we put these things into the backlog, right? And they sit there. And there's no, sorry, I thought it was something on the microphone. There's no concept of urgency. There's just someone else has to go and think about when to deal with this thing. So review date. When we actually have work to do, if this is only ever work we've agreed to do because we've actually planned it out and pointed it or however we're going to do it, right? I will make sure we can enable or disable pointing in the long term and enable or disable time estimates in the long term, right? So there will be an option of how you want to do this because ultimately it doesn't matter how you do this, whether you point it or not, it does not matter at all. Pointing is actually just an option, right? It's more important that the work is understood than how you get to the work, right? So trying to encourage people to break things down and size appropriately is the goal here. And that I've kind of gone through this many times. I will do pointing. I like pointing, but when I'm developing on my own, pointing will have absolutely no value. It will not demonstrate well, and I will not be able to represent it effectively on my own using this system. Now, I just started with Mojo's helping me a little bit. Well, Mojo will be helping me a lot with building another component of the system. As we go forward, we'll be able to dog food Liquid Sky to do that and work on the same things, and therefore pointing may have more value. But as a solo developer, pointing has zero value because my estimations are my estimations. the value in pointing seems like it's more the discussion around the pointing rather than the points themselves, which kind of aligns with what you need as a group. Yeah. So as a solo developer, pointing is absolutely useless. Yeah. It's Loki time. Hello, bud. You go outside and run around in the mud? I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I cannot guarantee Loki's not going to do the Loki thing. Okay, Loki's going to do the Loki thing. Come on, bud. Come on. Okay. Hello, my friend. Hello. Hello, my friend. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Big stretches, huh? Yeah. Did you enjoy your cookie? Yeah. No, you're not getting more cookies. No, that's not the way it was. So yeah, I'm not going to do, I'm going to try and do this with the dog stood on me. I'm not going to do pointing myself in this, but I'm going to introduce the concept. Get out of my pocket. You're not having the tissues. So yeah, we're gonna get to that. Yeah, I wanted to read the Agile Estimation and Planning book and see if I can get some ideas of how, because it's not just, to me, it's not, I don't think I'm drastically changing anything about the entire concept here. I think I'm just breaking it up into a pre-stage. And if a team wanted to build all this out in the tasks, they could still build it all out in tasks and use the entire process of the tasks or execution or whatever we call this piece as the core of the application. You don't need to use planning. Planning is just there as a, hey, look, this is a best practice. So let's add. Planning items are basically trying to organize backlog items. Planning items are trying to, it's not trying to organize, it's trying to, well, I suppose it is organizing, but it's trying to make sure that we understand the difference between planned work and future ideas. And if you look at a backlog that's got a load of Jira tickets in it, because someone says, oh, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this, they fill up and people are then afraid to go removing things from them because they don't know, well, do we need that still? Do we need that still? And then everything becomes an effort. At least as a planning item, it's got a review, it's got a process. And again, the visibility is meant to be there so that people can say, okay, if a planning item's added for a project or a planning item's added, whatever, how many sprints are outlined at a time? Again, that's however many you want to do. I mean, ultimately, you want to do, we're going to get into prioritization. That's going to be a challenge of the task backlog because the backlog right now is, if you think about it, is a global backlog. So if there were different teams taking up tasks, it's a global backlog, right? So And I do know that the way that they expect it to work is that you don't assign necessarily a piece of work to a team, you assign a piece of work to a project, and that project can be assigned to team A one sprint and team B the next sprint, right? So the idea is that work can flow between the groups. Whether that's realistic or not, again, that's an organizational problem. But in terms of prioritization, the way would work is you go through here, and the idea would be the planning is done. We allow developers to build a sprint. We can go in here. We can say, okay, well, well, that's preparing, but now ready for planning. We can go through here and talk about this. We can talk about the tasks, etc. And now we can say, okay, it's in progress now because we're actually working on this, right? The team should be cross-functional, so essentially. But so I'm not trying to build this into the concept of a sprint board is a team either, right? It might be, we're going to get there. We're going to see how that works. Because I don't necessarily like the way that Jira lays it out, but if I go in, what's my work? Right. Oh, sorry about that. Okay, there you go. Because I took it away from you, chewing something she shouldn't be. So, in terms of how many sprints are outlined, well, that's an organizational challenge, right? That's can you get this work planned and done effectively? Right. In practice, yeah, everything's everything's great in practice. It doesn't mean it works in actuality, right? So we're doing this piece right this second, by the way. Okay, so we're gonna do a sprints store, and we'll see how that feels. Because I'm not entirely certain it's a good idea, but is it a boards? Does boards have? Am I overthinking this right now? Let's do a sprint store. I'll never ever remember how to do this off the top of my head. I'm certain of it. So export const sprints store. Rename file. Yes. Equals signal store provided in root. I've got to understand more about that. With sprints query, that's nice that it's trying to create that for me already. So that's a feature. Create constant, create function. Turn new signal store feature. Don't think it's quite that, but yeah, you get the idea. Features, query feature, it goes there so we can see it. So we do return, it's not a new, there we go, single store feature. Ah, there we go. So that's with methods. So with entities, sprint, come back to that in a second, with methods, store, and then we're going to deal with sprint service. So what I'm realizing is I'm breaking this application down as I'm getting better at figuring out the components. I'm seeing that I do end up with one-to-one. So when I've got the planning items store and I'm talking about planning item service, that just can be service. I don't need other services necessarily. So in general, I'm not leaning on many dependencies beyond the scope of the thing I'm talking about. So that's kind of my measure right now is, okay, if I have to pull in other things, then do I really have a need for multiple things versus everything pulled into one? And it's just allowing me to stop and question, not necessarily land on, oh, well, it must be broken up. It's more, it could be broken up. So we can inject, we can with methods, we can do with entities. So now a sprint, we need models here. Models. Makes me wonder if multiple of the same kind of dependencies in anti-pattern. A service that ingests two repositories. Yeah, that's what, like, I mean, there's a few instances in the back end where I do need two repositories. But if I need a third or whatever, or I need a more complex thing, I make a domain service. But even then, I still need those three repositories because I might be pulling data from three different things in the same thing. But it's making me pause. It doesn't feel bad necessarily, but it's making me think, okay, well, hold on. If I'm working on this thing, why do I need these dependencies if I'm just working on this thing, right? Are those not separate things that need to be handled? So yeah. So it's a voice. Make sure you question it rather than it's an absolute rule, right? But if I need, like, again, if I call that sprint service, what other service am I going to need when I'm dealing with the store regarding sprints, right? This is repository I mean, this is essentially, front end to repository to service. But it's the same concept. Well, hold on. Is there a smell there? There might not be, but it's enough to stop me and make me think about it. And that's what's important. Stopping and thinking, not just bundling through and doing. In general, that's a very good rule to play by. So store.ts. Oh no, store. Sprint.ts. This is going to be export interface sprint. Going to have an ID. What? I didn't write that anywhere. I haven't written that down. Like, it's not wrong, but I didn't write that. It's right. I do want that, but I still didn't write that down. Hmm. Off to work. Delta, have a great day. Take care. It's reading your code in your phone. But I didn't say anywhere that sprints has anything to do with tasks. And I suppose I put it under the task component. That's quite a leap to assume that that object requires a task. Because I didn't write that in anywhere. What I'm saying is I didn't make that association anywhere other than the fact I put sprint in a tasks folder. But tasks folder doesn't contain tasks. Tasks are actually contained as a shared component because I need them from multiple aspects. So the fact that it wanted to do it immediately is just. Mm. So I get why. I mean, yeah. Well, it's just like you said, it's just inferring. It's not. It's nothing really that clever. It's just I didn't expect it to offer me tasks being there. Okay, so let's do service. No log. Please lay down. Ah, dang it. Sprint service. It automatically assumes the word sprints or service rather. Okay. I'm doing a little bit too much engine free stuff here, but yeah. So the way this is going to work is, and I just create query with no reason for query, but yeah, function with um, oh yeah. How are you managing to find paper? I don't know whether this is good training or bad training. If I take something out of her mouth, I'll make sure I reward her so that she knows to let me take things out of her mouth. Um, what do I call these things? Right feature with sprints, right, return. So this is a similar pattern, right? Now, the way this works. Hello. That's a rough start, looking like spam to begin with. Okay. So when you create a sprint, what's going to happen? Um, again, I'm going. That's interesting. It does it that way. It's not quite how I want to do it, but yeah. Um, the way I've been doing this, and we can open up the right feature here, is, and yeah, see how they call this add planning item, right? Well, I'm on the planning item store. Why do I need anything to be explicit about add planning item? Here, I'm creating a sprint, right? So I've called them add on the other one, on task, right? But I keep calling this create sprint, create sprint, create sprint. So I'm going to go with create. Sprint takes a sprint, returns a promise. And what this does is return new promise of sprint. Stone Eagle, hello, how you doing? And it does. No, that's that. That's that. Now, because we don't actually storing the sprint at this point, right? We're not actually calling a service. This part can't happen. So even though we've got the stub of the service, we can't use it. And then we are patch state is actually a method. And you patch the store and you add an entity of, for right now, sprint, right? And what that'll do is it'll actually store it locally. Doing well. Hopefully I won the fight with Orth. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. We're working on adding sprints into the platform right now. So when I hit create, we should get a sprint. So, when we plan this out, create dialog, how do you test this? How do you verify this? Create dialog threading when a trigger clicked, right? Update service to send new sprint. We don't have that ability. So let's make sure we list sprints, update service, update store. So the problem becomes is that's weird. It's updating every time I lift up the keys. That's interesting. Update service to send sprint. So the service doesn't exist, or the endpoint doesn't exist. So this will crash if we test it like that. So this does get into, okay, well, if you've got QA, etc., how do QA validate this piece? It's something we're going to have to figure out, later on. Like what do we want that to look like as far as process goes? But for right now, I can actually validate this by listing the sprint on the screen and seeing at least called this piece. But yeah, the purpose is, this is the front end code. The endpoint existing on the back end, that doesn't exist yet. So we don't have that concept. The two need to meld together at some point, right? So, you know, otherwise this will just throw an error until the other piece is there. What are tells? So here we're going to inject our HTTP client. Nice. He knows to make it comment now. That's interesting. Public function create. I don't need function, do I? Again, so planning items is one of the earliest services. So everything about it is early. So it means that I don't necessarily use it as a reference for doing this, but yeah. But this doesn't return the sprint. This returns an ID of the sprint. So this is going to be an observable of a tracked entity response, which is possibly the worst name available. Loki, we're not doing this every day. No, 8:10 is not not the time we're doing this every day. We're doing this every day. Okay. Seems Loki wakes up around this time. So Loki is a dog, by the way. If you haven't been in here before, Loki is one of my dogs, and he likes to come and stand on me and say hello in the morning. Come on, bud. No. Come on. You gotta stand up, aren't you? Yeah, you gotta stand up. Okay. There you go. Hey, no, you're not getting coffee. Now getting coffee. Buddy, no, come on. Okay, so yeah, the challenge of building the stories like this is, you know, um, I need a structure to mock this endpoint until it's available. That's the big problem for me is how do I do that so that if I could say, yeah, this story could be delivered, it will indicate that it's not available. Ow. It will indicate that it's not available without crashing, but the moment it is available and becomes ready, it works. That would be a really nice pattern to have because then I could say, okay, the UI stops at the UI. I can wire up the service. I know the endpoint we've discussed with the other developers. This is what's going to happen, and that's how it works. Hello, bud. So that would be a nice pattern to have. That when it's available, it's available. I just don't know how to achieve that necessarily. Yeah, you think? You think? What do you think? Um, so this is going to. You can't come and sit up on me because you're too big. So we're going to do this http.post tracked entity response. So tracked entity response is just is an ID. It's just this will return an identifier. So the idea is that when it goes to the server, again, if you're new to the stream and you haven't seen this chart before, this diagram before, this is the overall architecture I'm working within. When it goes to save something, that thing will return the identifier to validate that it's saved that thing. And from there, you've got from the client, you now have an ID to track to use to say, yep, I know I'm talking about this thing. If you refresh the client, you've lost the thing anyway, right? At this point, we don't have any persistent storage there on the client side. So yeah, that's the way that works. So tracked entity response is just an ID. We need base URL. Forgive me for using my mouse more, but I have a dog holding my left hand, which typing really fun. And we're going to post. We're going to post something like this. And we're going to store to sprints. Do we go to sprints? Post to sprints. I'll post to sprint. A post to sprint. You get from sprint with an identifier. Yeah. I'm not trying to make a RESTful API. I'm just trying to make a logical API. This would be name. Yeah. Loki. No, come on, bud. Come on. Come on. You can't keep doing this every day. We have to make the Loki stream. There we go. There we go. And this isn't going to post tasks, that's for certain. So that's all that really needs. So in the store, in our method, Loki, you like 45 pounds. You're not a lap dog. So the way this would work would be we'd say, okay, well, I could have waited, I suppose. But the way I've been doing it, again, I've got to learn more on the client side. The client side is a massive weak spot for me. So we do service dot create. We pass the sprint in there. It demands some attention to human, no further. Otherwise, it gets all your attention. Yeah, huh? Yep. He's not a tiny dog, but he's now sat on my lap looking around like he owns the place. His sister's on the floor, laying down. Like, good girl. And then with the result, so the result now has that. And what we do is we can set the result there, patch the state. So we know when that's done, and that'll work. The problem is, again, from a testing perspective, headless dog. Yeah, the green screen effect doesn't do you very good, does it? Ah, Loki, what's this? There you go. That's Loki. You're a handsome boy. Right, bud? Uh, Forget your own camera. Will you kind of lay on the floor? If I sort you out an area with a bed and then your own camera. Do you want to do that? Do you want to have your own camera? You're actually getting hair all over my desk. It's not very good, is it? We need to have a word. So Loki is a um I can tell he's a big. But it let you do it. Oh, Rambling Geek added it. Okay, there you go. Sorry. Thank you, Rambling Geek. Um it it deems that as bullying, calling him a big baby. It doesn't obviously not understand the context. So yeah, he is a big baby. It's not an offense. It's not I'm not calling you mean names, am I, bud? Do you want do you want uh bath? What's that? What's that? What do you smell? What do you smell? Huh? You smell? Okay. Can I get this done? It's gonna take me like 3 weeks to write one feature because you've decided that 8 o'clock is your uptime. We were doing so well as well. He's he looks lab like at certain angles. He is a pit mix. He's one of the friendliest dogs I've ever met. His sister's very friendly as well. They're both very chill dogs. But yeah. Okay, bud? You're just happy sat here right now. So now we've got the store, we've got that set up. Let's move these to feature. Um, so we need features in our stores, new features. Um, let's do that. And then this sprint right feature. Oh, what am I doing? What's this, bud? He's looking at the keys like he's got to chase them, I think. This might get this might get challenging. Um, buddy, don't do it. Resist the urge. Resist the urge, bud. So what we do here is we import with sprints query with sprints right. Right. Yeah, Xcoding is a super smart developer. They're doing very interesting things, like editor one day and then assembly stuff and well, low level stuff, operating system stuff the next. Okay, so the reason I put read and write there, and again, my structuring of signal stores right now is probably wrong. My understanding of how to effectively use them is probably wrong. I would like to get some people to review with me and go through this, but I don't know how to set that time aside and kind of review my usage. My fear is that it would be like, well, no, you're doing it completely wrong. You completely don't understand how to use these things, and yeah, we need to throw them out and start again. That would be devastating. So I'm going to call that with sprints read. It sits right there. So on this side, essentially I end up with a method that uh, looks like this, right? And that's basically, so there's a few extra pieces. So there's request in here, these things. And what those are is extra state. Like, state is this malleable thing that you can just add stuff into. It's like it's just shaping the data, the state of an entity, a store, and then so you can add in extra properties and stuff. So some of these are meant for tracking whether I'm loading or whether, what current state the actual store is in without changing the model itself. So I'm kind of getting my head around them bit by bit, day by day. But ultimately, I will need a load which will return the entities within there, and then I'll be able to get the entities out of there. Remove unused element, remove unused element, remove unused element. For right this second, I'm going to clean it up. Remove it. Right. So the idea that you load from the server and then populate the store with all the entities. So how to use this? So my view here, right now again, create sprint dialog is lying under there. Um, so we're going to inject the signal store. So read only store equals inject sprints store. And again, coming back to that measure that I talked about earlier on, if I'm doing too much in a single component, then I'm going to, if I've got like multiple stores and multiple needs in a single component, the likelihood is I could probably break them up into multiple components and break down their needs to the point where I just need a store variable, because the store for this is the only one I need for performing the actions within this component. So I'm starting to use that indicator. It's not necessarily a rule, but it is a good indicator to me that maybe something can be a little less complicated and it smells a little bit, and it's worth thinking about, could this be broken up a little bit more? This is not magical. I'm talking into this, or through you into this, with the hope that my voice isn't too distorted, using a dog as a pop filter. I know. You're a big smelly beastie, aren't you? You want hugs? No hugs? No hug? Oh, hugs. The audio is fine, good. Oh, he's lying down. Oh, he's trying to lie down. He's not sure about lying down. Okay. Do you want to talk? No? Okay. Um, there is that risk, yes. Which is why I'm not letting him get too comfortable. he has to sit up. He'll get bored in a minute. But the same, I'm not punishing him for doing something that's he's just being friendly, right? I don't want to punish him for that. Ready to get down now? One thing we've learned about these two is they are super stubborn and very vindictive. So I could get punished in a different way by kicking him off as well. I may be a bad parent by not reinforcing the rules. You ready to get down now? You gonna get down? He's definitely not getting any rewards while he's up here. Want a cookie? If you want a cookie, you gotta get down though. How's that? You only get cookie if you get down. No, you don't get cookies while you're up here. No. It's just more awkward than anything else. I know full well that having a dog on the stream is not going to hurt my stream, um, unless people are really, really chomping at the bit to see the development. Being that nobody said get on with the coding yet, I think I'm safe. And the and the viewer numbers have held well with Loki on the stream, so I'm doing okay. Okay, so we need the store. We need to go and save. So no, he's fine. Except when you block. What did I just type, Loki? Because I've got a head in my way. Go back to doggo pets. You okay, bud? Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think we'll have to get the room set up in such a way that I can have doggo cam. I do have a spare C920. I think a C920. I'm not using my Brio for work, my work camera for this. And I'm certainly not using a G7 for doggo cam. Okay. So I'm sorry. Do we want something? What's the matter? Feels he wants belly scratches. Um, can I? Can we get down now, please? I think it's time. Yeah, it's time. No, we're just getting more comfortable. Come on, go on, big man. You can't see this, but he basically got down, but stood up and held onto my arm as I let him down. Ready, bud? Come on, good boy, good boy. Okay, good boy. There we go. We'll go Taylor. Okay, let's see if we can get to the end of the stream, eh? So here we're going to need, we can close these down now. There. So this dot store dot create. The AI wants to help, but it's not helping. Insert there. So we can do that, and then so that returns a promise. This dot hide, right? So we can do the create, and we can do that, right? Now again, What's the matter? Are you mad at me now? Because I let you down? So the last couple of days, I'd had some peanut butter protein balls, and I'd bring them in, and I'd put them on my desk. Um, yes, I eat at my desk. That's the thing. Um, it's never on stream, and he knew they were there, and he would sit here looking at my desk like, "You want to hand them over?" I'm like, no, you can't have chocolate. You're not allowed chocolate. It's bad for you. So he would, but he knew they were there, sealed. He is frustrating. Okay, so what was I trying to do there? I was trying to go to the store, the right. So if I try this, it's going to error. But yeah, we should be able to go here, here. We should be able to get this up. And sprint test. If we get as far as a network call, things are working. No, bud, you can't come up. It's fine. So we're going to start that on Monday. 8. I dislike that control. 8 a.m. And we're going to finish it on the 31st. Loki. 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 What are you doing? You're going to hurt yourself, bud. You can't come up. No. So when we hit create, we don't do anything because we forgot to wire up the save. So the save doesn't do anything. What's the matter? On submit, is it? Is it on submit? Oh, on ng submit. There you go. That's why that's like that. Let's try that once more. Test sprint. It doesn't really matter what I choose here, right? I'm being picky for no reason. Ends on the 31st at 8:24. There you go. So it's 4:04 because that endpoint doesn't exist. Does it post all the information? It does. It posts the start date, end date, etc. There we go. So that's wired up. So I think we can safely say that is done. Okay, I'm going to be right back. I'm going to let him out, and I'll be right back, and we'll see if we can do some more. Okay. Sorry about that. Don't forget, if you are watching on YouTube, likes and subscribes on YouTube are more helpful in driving traffic. Discoverability on YouTube is terrible. So yeah, likes make the difference. If you're liking the content. If you're not. Radio Patrick, hello. How are you doing? How did you finish up last night? So Radio Patrick being that. Um, Patrick's been doing some radio station. So he has a radio station he builds with his friend, and he's been building the interface to the database. And last night was playing with an SVG and animating things based upon WebSocket events and stuff. And it's very interesting to watch. Uses Flutter and .NET. So again, different front end with more .NET. So if you're interested in smart content like that, that's well worth checking out. Create service for sprints. I couldn't get the dials animated, but I think it's because the style attribute isn't supported in the OBS browser or something. Yeah, the OBS browser is a little bit quirky, isn't it? I remember from trying to do stuff with it in the past that, yeah, doing overlay stuff is tough. One day I will do more, I promise. Create service for sprints. Okay, hold on. Create store service and models for sprints. Client, stub out, read, write, behaviors, audit that, all to save, failed. Commit and push. Let's push them off the machine. You stream it does anything you can imagine and doesn't, you can write C#. Streambot's not bad. More faff than I want to play with. Though. But if I'm going to build stuff, if we're going to build custom integrations and stuff, anyway, push. Yeah. Did that work to amend that committed? Yeah. Padre's doing some stuff with services and WebSockets and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, building the service, building everything there. So I'm not sure StreamerBot is going to work for that specific case. I'm going to see if I can get set the style differently to do the transform, or if there's a way the server can serve the SVG in some more dynamic fashion without all the JavaScript. Gotcha. That look like a lot of work, to be honest. But I mean, you're not building it necessarily in for like it is the focus of what you're doing, right? It's the radio station, the stream, they kind of meld together. For me, overlays and messing around with all that sort of stuff. It's just yeah. One day, if it matters that much to the stream, then I'm doing things wrong anyway. So, but I do wanna hook this process in at some point to basically kind of lean into the whole planning stuff where the stream you can use channel points and stuff to create tickets and whatnot, whether they be for fun or not, doesn't matter. So I do want to lean into the whole design at some point, but again, it's taking that time, and that has to come past. That has to be project number 55 past all the others. Streamer developers.stream is something I want to prioritize at some point. Maybe going into the Christmas period, I'll focus on that and see if we can get it for the new year. As a really easy C# library for Twitch integration. Yeah. So I've got Twitch stuff. I've got bot stuff. That's not the challenge. The challenge is taking the time to tighten it up and make it make it work for what I need, and then building the components in the way I want to build them. Yeah, I've got a Twitch. I've got my own Twitch lib alternative. Okay, so again, what I'm not doing here is I'm not trying to build different Git branches for every single piece. If I start doing that, it's just going to take longer, be a little harder to work with, and the workflow is just going to get slowed down. But in reality, these could actually be separate commits that don't have any bearing. Now, this piece. So we're going to create a new endpoint and add sprint handler. We're going to do the validation. We're going to do the publish integration stuff. I think I can get a lot of this stubbed out in the next 20 minutes, but we'll see. Again, we are bad at time estimation. Time estimations, even if you pad them, you are going to be bad at them. I would highly recommend avoiding time estimations. Just focus on getting it done and understanding the requirements of what you've been asked to do. This tasks, I'm going to leave it as is. It's going to be called tasks for now, but sprint's going to live in here as well as a concept, right? Because it is all related work. Nice. So I don't want to call this execution. Execution would be a horrible term, but essentially that's what this is. This tasks is it's about the execution of the planning. It's about we're going to do stuff, right? I don't think we're going to do stuff as a service makes sense. I don't think the execution services make sense. It definitely doesn't make sense as tasks. Tasks is a concept within here. It was named this way because that's what I was focused on, not because, and I was trying not to think too far ahead. Now I have sprints. I have asked myself, okay, well, is sprints its own component? And I don't think it is. I think it lives as a concept in here. I could build sprints out completely as a separate component. I think I'd just be going a little bit too far on the whole services thing, and I'd be moving towards microservices at that point, rather than the modular monolith that I'm trying to build. So I don't think there's much value considering the two concepts are very related to each other, right? This is about execution, like planning is about planning. So I think it would be too far a stretch to make sprints its own component in the same. I'm definitely not doing that because it's easy. Right. So for right now, this is going to remain tasks. But if anybody ever comes up with a synonym of execution that doesn't sound quite so harsh, but is realistically, so yeah, this is the planning piece. This is the doing piece. It's not work because everything's work, right? I don't want to use the word work, but this is planning. This is doing. I'm not using doing. So, so that's why this is called tasks. But yeah, okay. So let's go, and we need to stop running. We need to introduce some more concepts. We're going to end up with another table, so let's create a table right this second. Not necessarily the right place to start, but yeah. This is called sprints, and it has an ID column, not null. Don't forget that part, otherwise that messes you up. Needs to be a primary key. We want it indexed. It has a name, NVARCHAR255. We'll worry about that later, not null. It has a start, date, time. And that's not null. And it has has an end date time, not null, right? We're going to need, does a sprint have an identifier? Yes, a sprint has an identifier because new column. You can do this. You can arrange the columns in SQL Server before you create. But if you modify afterwards, you cannot insert columns. It does not support insert before, insert after. I do not believe at this point. So a sprint has to have an identifier because we are going to discuss it. We're going to share it publicly. Can't be null. Default expression, new ID. That isn't going to do very much in Entity Framework. Check out Emporium Guy stream. So yeah, Emporium Guy yesterday was working on building out some components in his movie app, learning about Mudblazer and Blazor and finding frustration with interactive render mode and things like that, which I of course said, hey, that's just Blazor, it's fine. No, I didn't. I piled on. I said, that's one of the things that frustrates me about Blazor. But he was doing really great and getting it working, and yeah, that was interesting to watch. So yeah, get UTC date. There we go. And then we have a last updated date time. This is nullable. Do we care who created a sprint? I think we probably do. Created by user ID is a GUID of a unique identifier, right? Because again, tasks, sorry, that rubbed against the microphone. Tasks doesn't know what a user is. We just know we need to track that data through the task system. There's no query you're going to do in the task system to be able to pull all this information together. That's the point. It stores the information it owns and it stores references to everything else. That can't be null. We also need, I'm gonna start doing this. Last updated by can be null. That can be null, right? So let's do that there and that there, right? We don't need any indexing right this second, so we don't need any extra indexes, and there we go. We should be fine. So there's some aspect to that is wrong doing it that way, because what I've just done is I've determined exactly what I'm going to store. The problem is that this is a trap you've got to avoid. If a table structure is more complicated than this, right? Like I've identified, I know there's 3 fields I absolutely need. I know there's no need for them to be stored elsewhere. I know I need, because I'm going to track it like an entity of everything else in the system. It has a standard pattern. Then I'm good. However, if it's like a more complicated table, I would advise not creating the model first. I would advise creating the code and the tests first, and validating the need for that data as you build the tests and the behavior around it. That will help you make sure you have columns that make sense, and it will help you out. It will verify the data, but I wouldn't recommend doing it database first all the time. Okay. If render mode really is the main blocker, which I'm pretty sure isn't for you, I would recommend setting all your new apps to either be global server interactive or WebAssembly interactive. Then you'll have a consistent and predictable experience. But, okay, for me, the challenge is I don't see any, and maybe it's changed since I last looked at Blazor. I will give it another look eventually, but it's like it doesn't give you guidance as to when, and then the documentation for Mudblazer, it was lacking the fact. So the issue that Mems was having yesterday, Emporium Guy, was he was building a component for a form and it wasn't working. It wasn't behaving properly. And he went, hold on. And he went back and it was render mode whatever on the component, and it started working, and everything was there. So there was no indication from the tooling that that would be a problem. So what indicates when you should and how things interact, etc. So it's more how that isn't logical. So it's again, I'm used to Angular. I'm used to playing with Angular. It has the same sort of problems. It's going to get more as we start to get more SSR stuff in Angular. I think 19 starts introducing it more again. Um, then you've got standalone components and stuff. So I think I'm going to see the same problems appearing. Um, I don't think it's a unique Blazor problem at this point. I just think Microsoft has kind of changed the way things are done so many times throughout Blazor that there's no I've just not enjoyed that experience. Napalm, hello, good morning. So let's get that script stored. No. Add file 003. Sprints.sql. For anyone seeing me creating these scripts, I'm not using migrations because the databases are changing. The data's changing. I want the ability to just drop and not mess around with migrations. My intention is at the point where the system is to a stable point, and I'm comfortable that that is now ready. I would like to try creating migrations at that point. But while things are completely in development flux, I'm not just adding a fix here or adding a fix there. I'm designing the entire system, right? The system is nowhere near completed. Um, there's no, it would make more of a mess to start creating migrations. So that's why the scripts. So the idea would be that I can run these when I check out. I can even update these going forward when we've done migrations, even if I wanted to. But at the very least, I've got the ability to recreate the entire database and start from scratch without messing around with migrations and stuff and trying to run them and whatnot. Yeah. So there's my sprints table. So let's just create an entity for sprint, add, and that is an entity base. So an entity base has ID, identifier, date added, last updated on it, right? And it will have domain events. So we're going to need private string name, public string name is name, private date time, start date time, public date time, start date time. Can you guess what it is yet? That's a poor reference. My apologies. Probably growing up. Sadly, I think I was signing off before you do today. Lovely morning training. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope it does. Hope it isn't too painful. So then we're going to create private period created by user ID identifier. Tell me I called them. Tell me I called them IDs. I did. Hey Frank, how are you doing? Good morning. How's things? Compliance and policy training. What a great start to the day. Okay. Public GUID created by user identifier, private GUID, nullable GUID, last updated by. I actually probably want to call that updated by rather than last updated by. Refactor, script, generate. There you go. Updated by user identifier. So I introduced this concept with tasks, and I think it's a worthwhile thing going forward. Privacy but still not. Fun. Okay, so again, the weird layout of my data model is because I want to control how data is manipulated and how data is created in the system. So what we end up with is I need to do the configuration, sprint. I don't know why I call that tasks configuration, but whatever. Sprint configuration. And this is an entity type configuration of sprint. So that base type defines those fields, and then I just need to go through here and say builder.property that way. Okay. Start date has field, start date time, end date. No? Come on, help me out. Yeah. Oh, come on. You know how this is going by now. So what this does is this allows Entity Framework to still map the properties to the actual correct case names, create private variables that prevent write of these variables, right? So now if I pull an object out of Entity Framework with this, it will work as long as I set these back variables. Let the fun begin. Have a good one. Napalm, take care. I hope it goes well and is over quickly. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a private constructor as well, which means we can't create an instance of this class just on its own. It's going to take those variables. Last updated by is quite rightly not necessary, right? And actually we should be able to set that to null by default. So then we're going to create a method for create, right? And that's going to pass those variables down, and it's going to do that. We're going to need an event. So I'm not going to worry about it right this second, but we are going to publish a sprint created event to the system, which will allow us to react to that happening. So I don't think I'm going to get quite as far as we'd like, but let's get as far as we possibly can. So over here, sprint, we'll go with sprint, and we'll create a post endpoint. So this is going to be a public class parameters. What I'm doing is I'm wiring it either side. And the thing is, this is the risk when you're building a system like this, is that I've got a lot of repetition in here now. It's not worth trying to generalize. It's not worth trying to make quicker. But I run the risk of just assuming that code is going to be simple and writing all the pieces and copying and pasting the pieces because it's quicker. So I've got to be careful I don't do that. Not that I fall foul of that once already this stream, right? So parameters. Yes, I'm doing the same things, but each piece does have its own behavior. Each piece does have its own parameters. Each piece does have its own, things that I need to focus on, and I should be able to still make sure I cover the logic and stuff properly. But Let's get as far as I can. So this is going to have the name. There you go. So this is going to be an endpoint that takes parameters, and that's post dot parameters, and returns, and what's this? It returns a tracked entity response. So we're going to do something like that. Again, I'm not trying to copy and paste out all the time, but these are similar patterns over and over. So we override this, we override configure, we're overriding post, and that's sprint. And yeah, we have to figure out a better pattern for that. Application policies equals policies dot. I think that's that, right? Yeah, extensions, identity, policies. Coming up, I do have an actual plan for this stuff now. I saw some stuff yesterday. I think I mentioned it at the beginning of the stream in terms of auth. And basically, it's creating a transformer, an auth transformer, and it will receive the request on the way through. And what I can do there is I can check that you're an actual valid user and then go and load auth and like populate the policies at the request level and then use a cache to make sure I don't keep hitting them. That way, I don't need to send permissions and stuff from Auth0. And that way, if it's right, if I can use it the way it looks like I can use it, then that's how I'm going to make sure that I can get per tenant permissions managed at the tenant level, because then you'll be able to say, okay, well, this user can see tasks, can't see sprints, can't edit sprints, can't add sprints, etc. And we can start to put a permission system in the application, and it will be part of your user, I think. I don't quite know how to achieve everything there. I do know that from a can you update things perspective, it's possible. How you get it down to the client and set things up, I'm not entirely certain how that's going to work yet, but it should work from a permissions perspective. So I'll be trying to figure that out in the background. And my intention is to build kind of a structure that I can then enable in Control Tower, etc., if we want to, and use the same sort of permission structure there. Because again, as an administrator, you might want like salespeople to be able to go in and navigate and see clients or do reporting on clients, but you might not want them to be able to add billing or change billing for a client sort of thing. So this one is going to look like this, right? Add sprint. See, again, that's add task, but this is not. Add sprint feels wrong. So yeah. Okay. But as much as I want to, if you are interested in this content, if you are enjoying watching this stuff, there is a Discord in the cards below on YouTube and on Twitch. If you want to chat more about it, ask more questions, you're more than welcome to. Or your own stuff, if you want to share personal projects that you want kind of other people to look at, that's also acceptable on the Discord. If you're liking the content, then I would say, it's okay to ask questions. It doesn't matter how advanced you feel you are. If you're new to programming, if you want to know more about why I'm doing what I'm doing, it's okay to ask. The stream is not necessarily about the coding. The coding might be fun. The background noise for you might be fun. I don't know what you're getting from the stream. I'm always interested to find out, by the way, because it does matter to me that I'm doing something that people are taking value from. But in the same, um, I want to keep providing value. So, um, Yeah. Okay. Let's go to, let me see what this is about. So yeah, if you ever have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask in the stream or off the stream. I'm always happy to talk about what we're doing. And I love doing this stuff. So yeah, don't forget to like if you're enjoying the content on YouTube and subscribe for more. So okay, so we're going to go over to a new stream. I haven't been here before, so I will preface this with, we're going to someone I haven't seen before, so I don't know what their content is generally. It looks like they're learning AstroDB and trying to import a table. So there's some TypeScript up on screen. Deflux, good morning. Have a great day. I will be back for more tomorrow. We'll get the sprint. If I can get time, or if I get time off stream, I will try and add more to the sprint behavior and try and get sprints working. So the goal tomorrow will be to be able to hit create sprint, have a sprint created and listed here, and then we can start the sprint on time, and we can start assigning the tasks to the sprint, and then we'll move to actual boards, right? So yeah, that is the goal. And we'll see how we get towards that tomorrow. But um, hopefully this has been fun. So we're going to go see Adrian Learns. It's an English language. It's TypeScript. Oh, it's Swede. But like most Europeans, he has an English, so that's fine. So and it sounds right, nice and chill. So don't forget, by the way, it is Wednesday. I think it's Wednesday. One line streams on Wednesdays. That is a fantastic place if you love .NET content. Seeing .NET content. He builds apps in Blazor primarily, but a lot of similar things, and yeah. So don't forget to go and follow online. Okay, let's go raid Adrian Learns. I'll come along and hang out for a few minutes, and we'll see how this goes. So take care, all. Have a great rest of your day. Bye. D'accord.